right, and welcome to the live stream show. And today we are talking about how you can create an engaging and amazing retreat. And if you're anything like me, you have been chafing at the bit to doing more traveling and to having more adventures and to having more experiences where you can actually gather in person with other people. Because these past 2 years, I'm telling you, have been really hard. If you like to go to new and interesting places and actually hang out with people and do something that's actually really meaningful. That's like different than just sitting on a beach. So in addition to that, as a business person, as somebody who runs their own business and does a lot of experiential things in my business, I have been thinking about doing retreats in beautiful exotic locations, especially in warmer climates. Like I live here in Boston, and in Boston, even now, like yesterday, we had hail. So to go to, let's just say Mexico, keep it simple, someplace warm in the wintertime, and to gather with a group of people and do something with that group that will take them deeper and further than we could possibly do in this online remote work from home kind of thing that has become my normal way of doing business, especially over the last 2 years. So if this sounds like you and you have been thinking about, oh yeah, running a retreat, I would get to go to this really cool place and I would actually get to meet and hang with my favorite clients. What would that be like? If you've been thinking about that, then today's episode is for you. I have invited Amy Flores Young on, who is a retreat planner extraordinaire. And she's like the perfect concierge for creating an amazing experience for whatever kind of retreat that you would like to be the host of. So that's what we're talking about today. Stay tuned, don't touch that dial, and let's start the show. Recorded live in Boston, Massachusetts, this is the Livestream Show. In a world full of underexposed entrepreneurs, the Livestream Show is your gateway to a global community of livestream pioneers who dare to go live and create something special and unexpected, which could only happen because it was live. I'm your host, Brad Powell. Let's get on with the show. All right. Welcome to the show, Amy.
Good afternoon. So happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation because, as I say, this is something that I've been basically dreaming about doing. And as a little bit of background, as I was saying just before we got started, I used to be a kind of travel and retreat planner because I was the director of an Outward Bound program. And what I found as the director of an Outward Bound program was, first of all, we did create amazing experiences for the people who participated in those programs. But as the, let's call it concierge, although that's not what I called myself when I was doing that. But as that role, I found that I did less and less of the actual experience. I did all of the administrative, managerial, behind the scenes kind of stuff, which I understand is your role. So you just told me that you're actually going to Egypt next week on a trip. So tell me,
Yes.
just tell me in this role that you have, like, what's the balance between how much time do you actually get to go on these trips as opposed to, do you end up spending all your time like not doing them at all?
It really depends on the client and the group, and what their needs are and what level of support they're looking for. So right now I travel with about a third of the things that we plan. I go on site with about a third of the clients for the trips. So it's great that it doesn't take over all of my time, and that I get to be part of some of these amazing experiences, and really kind of hold that leader and hold the intention of the retreat while I'm there. It's such a meaningful role to me to be able to play that part of support.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering when you're actually able to be there in the field, how does that enhance the experience of the program that you're helping to run?
So when I travel with the actual leader, it's usually in more of a background hospitality role. I'm not usually participating in the content per se, in not interfering with their magic and what they're bringing to the table. Um, it's being on site to handle the logistics, transportation, running to the store, cooking if necessary, just making sure that the guests are completely taken care of. In a experience we just had where I was on site, it was part of the experience. It was all women. Most of them were mothers of various ages of children and young adults. So it was really hard for them to be taken care of and to just leave the dishes on the table and not worry about what's for breakfast the next morning. And that was part of their journey and part of their experience, was to realize how hard it was for them to kind of sit with some of that. So that's why I was there, was to be that background person and handle all of that, because that was
Yeah.
part of kind of the experience
Yeah, I
the
like that
leader
a
was
lot.
going.
I mean, I think that's so essential. One of the biggest headaches that I can imagine as the leader of this kind of thing is the fact that not only do you have to deliver on whatever it is that you're delivering, the thing that you're doing together with this group, but then there's all of this other stuff. and
Yeah.
and the idea that you could hand that off to somebody else so you don't have to think about it is pretty wonderful. So yeah, that sounds really good. All right, so if I am thinking about running a retreat, which I am, and I'm thinking about, okay, so what are the, like, I know you sit down with people and say, okay, here's the things that you need to pay attention to. So what are those basic things that somebody who is planning a retreat needs to be really like, okay, don't forget these parts?
Yeah, if you're already in the weeds of it, and you already know you're going to offer it, like strategically in your business, you've already committed to retreats. You've already made that determination or jump. Within that, you really have to have your budget clear. That's the first thing I go over with clients, is their full budget. Um, I do offer a retreat budget calculator on my website that you can all formulate and you can fill it in, because we really have to make sure that it's going to be cost effective and profitable. Like you said, Brad, in the beginning of the show, we're entrepreneurs. We're here running businesses. So you have to make sure that, you don't lose money on it. So we do focus a lot on the budget and make sure that you don't lose sight of those smaller incremental expenses that can add up. Credit card fees, insurances, gratuities, might cost XYZ, but then you forget you got to add in the gratuity to that, or taxes or resort fees or all of those little pieces. Like I said, we just go through and make sure everything is included in the budget. That's our first step with most of our clients.
Yeah, and of course the other big question in my mind is picking the actual location. Just like, okay, well, the
That's
world is really big, or at least it
yes.
used to be.
So
It shrunk a little bit because
yeah,
of COVID. There's places you probably can't go right now still, but but even I'm saying Mexico. Mexico is really simple, but even within a country like Mexico, there's like so much choice, and there's so much
yes,
variables in terms of, well, some places are what they appear to be, and other places aren't. So, how do
correct.
you, like in your role, are you early enough so that you're really helping people pick exactly the place that they're going?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Some clients come in, like I said, some clients have been doing retreats a long time and they're ready to offload all of that office administration back end type of logistical work so they can truly engage their community and grow and scale to the next level. So we handle that, and they may have places they've already been. So we know what they're looking for. If not using the same locations, we know what type, what look and vibe and environment they're going for. When somebody comes in looking for kind of a whole new plan, part of our services is all of that research. And it starts with an interview with the client, again, to get a sense of what energy they're looking for, what level of amenities are they looking for, how large or small, with whatever their intent is for the event and those outcomes. Again, whatever, if they're project based, if it's spiritual based, if it's wellness, if it's a corporate retreat even, and they're looking for more of that team building and try to reconnect after all of the remote work. That gives us a sense of what they're looking for. And so understanding your audience and your outcomes is really what points us in the direction. So, and yes, Mexico is great. You can't beat the price points in Mexico. You can't, it's easy to travel in and out of right now, out of Mexico. So there are a lot of great locations right now. So I would start by asking where your community is traveling from to find out which flights would be most readily and easily available. Therefore, what airport we want to be close to. And those are all the things we take into consideration, that you don't want to be 2.5 hours from the airport. Or maybe you do, and that's okay. And we plan for that. We add that to the budget. We add that transportation in. And a lot of that is also making sure that that expectation is clear with the participants. There's nothing worse than getting off a flight and then having to get on a van for 2-3 hours when you weren't aware of it, right? Like if that's the plan, that's the plan and you're ready for it, but thinking, oh, I finally arrived, and then they put you on a bus for 3 hours.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of what we do, is setting those expectations and, again, coordinating as much as possible to make it seamless for the participants.
But let's talk about the onboarding experience of all of that. I mean, one of the things that I can imagine is just setting those expectations for the people who are coming. And so this is, any travel experience is going to have things that happen that you don't expect, no matter what you do.
Right.
And so do you have a framework or a process where you help your hosts figure out sort of the pre-trip, communication for people going, okay, this is what, here's the deal, and this is going to be this, and all of that kind of expectation setting for the people who are going to be coming on these kinds of trips?
Yep. That's for my clients. I handle all that for them. That's the upside of it, is, again, depending on the group, if there is going to be a Facebook group, a Zoom meeting, any of those types of things where that group is going to come together to go over the trip, I participate in all of those. I answer all their questions. I send out the emails of what they need to know, what the location's going to be, whatever it needs to be. We help coordinate all of their flights. So we know if there's a glitch or something's delayed, we get all the alerts on that, so we can support them, like you say, through those glitches, no matter how well we plan. There's always someone who might arrive late or get a cancellation, and we have to rebook them and those types of things. And that's, like I said, we just handle all of that so the leader can be present at the event and, like I said, just kind of thrive in their magic and bring their people along with them.
Yeah. And I'm also wondering about just the magic itself. I mean, I know that you work with some people who've been doing workshops and events for a long time, and they may not need much assistance in that realm. But is your role at all engaged, and especially in terms of the planning around, like, well, you're going to this particular location, and here's some of the opportunities for you for creating a really special experience?
Yes, and that's, again, like you were saying, kind of part of that intake process is asking those questions of, again, depending on the type of event it is, how hours of sessions are you going to need of, sit down time in a group, or how adventurous is the group going to be. We kind of try to get a outlay of who their typical guest would be, to know if hot air ballooning, camel rides, kayaking, whatever may be, would be appropriate for the group. And that is a lot of, that's another thing I do, is look at the content that they want to deliver, and then how to balance that with experiential, hands-on activities that align with the content. Not just, oh, this was a fun break, but how do we align it to expand the learning that we're doing?
Yeah.
And
So
that's a huge piece of what we do.
you were telling me that you're going to Egypt. It's coming up really soon. So let's use that as a little example of what's been the planning for that particular retreat, and what's going to happen when you get there. Like,
Okay. I love when I get to do an event like Egypt, because we have a guy on the ground in Egypt. So I call my buddy and say, I have a group. This is what we want to do. And he helps put all that together on the ground for us. And I have people like that. He's a certified tour guide, speaks English, all of those things. And I have people, I would say, on the ground in our hotspots, where we get lots of interest, where people want to travel. Thailand, Nepal, other spots in India, Israel, so those are great. So for this trip in Egypt, when a group calls and says they want to participate in an experience in Egypt, we clarify, is it a spiritual type of group? Is it a healing group? Is it a historical group? What are they trying to get from their experience? So we're able to cultivate that again and match it to the group. Are there children? Is it all adults? Do they know each other before they arrive? Like from a business or corporate or mastermind type program, are they familiar with each other? Or are they not going to know each other? So we'll have to do a little bit more pre-work to make them comfortable traveling together. So we put all that together. And then when they arrive in Egypt, whether I go or not, someone from the tour company meets them, gets them their visas and into the country smoothly. All of our tours in a place like Egypt, we have a tour guide, a driver, and like a security person that's also, so there's 3 nationals that are there with the group to keep the group safe and together, and all of those things that are necessary. This trip in Egypt, we're going to spend a few days in Cairo. Then we are going to fly, if you're familiar with the Nile River, goes down here. We're going to fly down to Aswan and take a Nile River cruise back up to Luxor, and then fly back to Cairo. So we're seeing a few different things on this trip, not just staying in Cairo.
oh, that sounds great. That sounds really nice.
So it is, yeah. So like I said, it's in some groups. I have a group there this week. We're going to be passing each other coming home. They just did the kind of what I call Cairo Central trip. And they still got in a full week, but did a little bit more in depth in the areas right around Cairo. They didn't have to do the river cruise. So again, we make it fit what the group is looking for. And we pull it together.
Okay. So let's go back to thinking about like this early stage of thinking about doing a retreat. I know that from a position of somebody who's like imagining, okay, this is something I'm really wanting to, I'm getting serious, I'm going to go do this. What are the things that they should avoid? Like the big sort of gaping crevasses that are standing in their way that they don't want to fall into?
A big thing is make sure you have a retreat agreement of some kind that clearly states your refund policies, if there is one. That's kind of the people think, oh, we'll just rent a place and everybody will show up and won't that be fun? Um, which it can be, and usually like 90% of the time for a small group, it it might be okay until it's not, right? Until something happens and then you realize, oh, I don't have business insurance and I didn't have a refund agreement and now I'm out all of this money. So that's usually when I start with someone, kind of even the pre intake questions is to ask, do they at least have their general liability, business insurance, and things like that. Because some of these small businesses or solopreneurs, might not have taken those steps yet. But before you actually travel to a site, even if it's just a rental down at Cape Cod, you have to make sure that you're covered as an individual and as a business entity. So that's the biggest pitfall.
Right.
Right there.
Yeah. Don't want to fall into that particular pit of like, oh no,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
lost all my money.
Yeah. And then for the actual travel pieces, it really is making sure, like I said, it's so hard because I want to do it all for you. um, but, again, making sure you have a clear, tangible outcome. It doesn't necessarily have to be a product, tangible, but, versus let's just all hang out and enjoy each other, which is great. But how do you sell that? You have to have a message, and an offer that people are going to want to buy, right? Beyond just, won't it be great to see each other? I think some people get excited for the travel and the community and the camaraderie that they don't spend enough time, like we're saying, like pulling out their magic when they're starting. Once they get there, obviously all that comes together. But I think being clear in your messaging and having an audience, knowing that you have an audience or a clientele that's ready to retreat with you. I don't work with, but a lot of people come to me thinking retreats, and we start asking those questions of what are your current offers? Once you have the retreat, what are you going to offer them next? Because now that you've had this wonderful shared experience, they're going to want to stick with you. Do you have something to bring them into for a program or whatever? So when people haven't really thought all that through, I kind of send them back to think through that a little bit more before they, make the time, not just the money investment, but the time investment of moving forward.
Yeah, I would think that that's one of the hurdles that most people have to get over. I mean, there's certainly groups that come and they want to do this with you, and they've already got a team, and that's who they're doing the retreat with. So marketing is not an issue for them. But on the other hand, there's all these entrepreneur business types who are having to market this as a particular kind of program. That's part of the things that they do. And so what have you seen that works really well for the retreat marketing space?
So what, obviously, like you say, those who have a following and have a good client base in the pandemic for a lot of reasons was great. Like, I don't want to minimize how horrible it was, but for a lot of reasons, it was pretty good because it allowed, I think, so many coaches and leaders to really clean up their programs and their offerings. Because number one, when you're live and in person, honestly, I think you can get away with more because there's just a different energy in the room. But being online, again, and to stand out, or not to stand out, but to make your people, draw your people to you, you had to be very clear in who you were and what you were offering. So I just noticed over the past 2 years, so many coaches and leaders and holistic professionals, especially in the holistic space where you think in those kind of broader woo-woo terms, they really had to hone in on their messaging in their offers. So now that's been great. They got to play and really clean that up to now have hopefully some more solid content that they could share in person. So I think it's a great time for that. And like you said earlier on, people are really clamoring to have that community connection again. And 80% of all travelers, like in the next year, are going to be solo travelers. So it's another big trend that people are looking, they're not looking, they're looking to join groups and not necessarily have to have a group before they travel. People are willing to sign up and go solo. So all those things are really great. So if you're already kind of curating a community or an audience, a really great way to kind of rev them up for a retreat is to start with some small webinar offerings, or challenges where you're engaging people, you're giving them a taste, of your personality and of your content, that you can, just like anything else, that you can bring them through to the next step. Like the breadcrumbs, you kind of have to lead them. You can't go from a $50 once a month offering to a $6,000 weekend offering, right? Like you have to think of your business plan to make sure it makes sense in offering a retreat.
Yeah. So let's talk about how this could be a really good time. Because you've seen this through a particular lens, over the last 3 years have been a big shift, and things are shifting again. So tell me why, or why not, this right now is a really good time to be thinking about, to be planning for this kind of offering.
Yes. So as I mentioned, obviously all the trends point to meaningful experiences, not just a break. People, as much as they still do vacation with their family or whatever, people have just become so much more self-aware and wanting more, and understanding that if they're going to invest time and money and energy into traveling, they want it to be an experience, not just a trip. And again, with the trend in solo travel, the trend of people wanting to do bigger trips, take more risks in a way with their travel, instead of just, we'll just drive down, we'll just drive up to Vermont for the weekend. They're willing to invest more time and energy and go further away, and do something bigger. And when planning a retreat, when you brought up the marketing and whatnot, it really takes, again, depending on where you are with your audience and your current offers, it takes 6 to 12 months to plan out a retreat. And part of that is to have time to drip that marketing, get people excited, get people registered, go through that whole process. If you already have if you retreated in the past and people are ready to come back, you could probably turn something around in maybe 4 months. So if you're thinking, yeah, I might want to do this, the time is now, because by the time it actually comes to fruition, could be the end of this year or into 2023. I have my larger clients who do 4 to 6 events a year. We're already well planned into 2023. We've already booked out their whole next year. So it's not too early to be putting things into the plan.
And if I want to do this, I'm listening to you now, I'm going, yeah, that's me. You're talking to me. I want to plan an event and I want to happen in winter of 2023. That sounds awesome. So what should they do? What's the best way for them to hook up with you?
Sure. So on my website, flowyotravel.com, no hyphen or anything, altogether, flowyotravel.com, everything is there. There's the book a call button, which we just start, again, have a conversation, what you're thinking about. I help you kind of vision through it and lead you to your next steps. There are also some free resources, a whole tab of them with the retreat profit calculator, which is all formulated. You can just fill it in to see where your numbers might be. There's the list of pitfalls and things to avoid. And there's also a full retreat sample pack, which is sample locations and itineraries to get your juices flowing and think of different ways you could approach an event. So it's all on the website.
All right. So that's flowyotravel.com. That's FLOYO travel.com. I'll make sure that that URL is in the show notes, in the comments down below. And yeah, that's our time for today. Thank you so much. This has been a fascinating conversation. I'm even leaning in further to doing a retreat than I was before we started talking. So thanks, Amy, for joining us today.
You know where to find me, Brad. Happy to be here. Thanks so much.
All right. And for people listening here at the end, thanks for joining the live stream show today. And if you are interested in getting the entire archive of the episodes of the live stream show, where you can learn how to create a client generating system for bringing your ideal people into your world and starting to work together with them as your favorite folk using video. That's what this show is all about. And the whole archive that will take you on some of the steps on that journey is at thelivestreamshow.com. All of it is there, and you can get it either as all the videos, they're all archived there, and all of the audio. So you can listen to this on your phone while you're out walking your dog or doing your dishes or driving your children to soccer practice, all of that kind of stuff. Thelivestreamshow.com is where that all exists. Thanks so much for joining. And of course, the best way to join is to join us live every Tuesday, every Thursday afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be here. And until then, thanks for being here today. So long.